Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 15 of the Simpa Life Podcast with me, Simpa. And as always, I am joined by Mr. Maka. How are you this fine day, sir?
I'm doing very well. I'll leave it at that. I was going to interrupt you and fuck it up on purpose, but, leave it at that. I'm doing very well. Thanks very much. This should be very interesting again. We've got an awful lot of common ground to talk about today, I think. So,
Yeah. I'm the commonality between you and our guest today. I think it's quite interesting. Obviously, he's a social scientist. He's a member of the Green Party Drug Policy Action Group, a musician, and a newly qualified geography teacher. So, I see a lot of parallels to you and him, Maka. So, it'll be very interesting to see the conversation that comes forth from this.
No pressure.
So without further ado, I'll throw you over to our guest today, Mr. Jules Levy.
Hi there. It's great to be here, Simpa. Great to meet you too, Maka. So, you're a geography teacher as well, are you?
No. Formerly, I was a music teacher.
Okay, cool.
So I worked in schools and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
Go ahead. You've just qualified as a music teacher. As a geography teacher.
As a geography teacher, yeah. So, I was working at IKEA. And I was getting pretty depressed working at IKEA. I'd come out of my master's degree and there was nothing, I ended up cooking as a job for no pay an hour pretty much.
Yeah.
And up came the opportunity to train as a geography teacher. So I thought I'd give it a crack, really. It was strange when I was in the first sort of meetings with the other trainee teachers, it's all like, why do you want to be a teacher? Why? And, I felt embarrassed almost because it's not something that a lot of them were like, this is a vocation. I've always wanted to be a teacher. Yeah. And I couldn't say, I just had to get out of IKEA. And this is my way out.
Yeah, well, listen, that's why I considered it as well myself. I was working in a pub, exactly the same situation. I think I had to do between 48 and 60 hour a week, and I was getting £6 an hour living in London. And it was a trap. It was a complete trap. I couldn't get out of it because all the hours were awkward and everything because you were working in the evening time. So you'd be absolutely fucking wrecked. That kind of way. So you'd have to make some sort of transition into it. Funnily enough, and I'll just mention this briefly. So I actually applied for a PGCE. I was going to do a full-on teaching position, and ended up getting myself kicked out of the course.
Oh no!
Because I had a one tier lower than the standardized qualification to get in, but because I'm Irish, there was a small bit of confusion with that. So they thought that instead of bouncing me back on at the start of the process, they thought it was, it's equivalent, so it's grand, it'll be the whole lot. And then I asked the fucking question about 6 months into the bastard program. I had passed all the really intensive group sessions and whatever. I was smashing it out, man. I was pure beaming. And I was just like, oh, by the way, do I have the correct kind of qualification for this? And they were like, no, you have to leave. I was like, what the fuck?
That's horrendous.
Yeah, it wasn't the first time that happened, but this isn't the Macca show, and you're not interviewing me.
To be fair, working at IKEA as a corporation goes, I always skit around 30-hour weeks and try and survive on, just to try and keep other interests and other things alive. And it was all right. I worked with some nice people, but I had to get out there. And to be honest, because the year I did my training last year was really good. I was a little bit like, they haven't Googled me, have they? They don't know that. I was really worried, I contacted a few people who had a blog post, and I was like, you need to make my name, my pseudonym, and change it. And I talked to my course leader, and I was like, can someone Google me? I don't want to suddenly be bitten on the arse 6 months down the line and be told I can't be a teacher because of my association to cannabis. Mm-hmm. And they were cool. They Googled it. They were like, it all looks quite academic. I've always been careful to I've got a couple of pseudonyms knocking about.
Yeah.
I got a YouTube channel from 10 years ago that was getting quite popular under a different name. I'm not going to say it here, but I'll share it with you. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just to jump in again, it's so as I was leaving, so I ended up being a music teacher. So I did that privately, and then I worked in with the school. So I had my music qualification, so I didn't need anything else. So I was like a was not external. I suppose it was an external thing. And anyway, I had a massive rapport with the kids and whatnot, and I did love it. But the whole architecture of it made me absolutely fucking paranoid. To a point where, as I was leaving on the final week, I jumped in to do a small bit of IT support just on a whim because they didn't have any anybody extra, and I was familiar with computers and whatnot, right? So as I was in there, I was chatting away, and a couple of the kids in the corner were laughing, right? They had found me through my pseudonyms. They didn't
really.
Yeah, they found me, and I was like, oh my god, what the fuck?
See, I've had a couple of moments where I don't know if it's just them being kids. Like, so I do Kahoot, for instance. Kahoot's an online quiz that you can do for kids. They get their phones out and they can join in and they can build teams. So a couple of the names have been dodgy, and I'm like, nah, you're not having that name. You know, Zoom smoke, Zoom. And I've caught a kid in the class with a bit of paper, looking like he's rolling a joint, and I'm just like, nah, no, we're not having that in here. But you know, I don't know if that's a coincidence, but I tell you, you know, that's the beauty of CBD. To be honest, is and I was very skeptical of CBD when it's all started a couple of years ago. Suddenly CBD. I was pretty like militant, like, nah, this isn't good. And I still am not a big fan of isolating one cannabinoid and marketing that. Of course, it's like, I think we all know that, you know, that's just not. But at the same time, I noticed it when I was working at IKEA. Suddenly I could talk to people about cannabis, and suddenly people weren't like, through the channel of CBD, suddenly people were like I could suddenly have these conversations with people rather than people shutting it down. And even in the staff room, I can say a woman was talking the other day, and she was like, I've got restless leg syndrome. And I saw her in the corridor a couple of days later. I was like, I'm going to try CBD for that. And it's just like, oh, okay. So, so just when we talk about fear of the law and how persuasive it is in people's everyday lives to even just talk about it, you know, it's really been acute to me over the last few years that, I mean, I think I've always known that, but it's not until the fact that then you bring up CBD and it opens up this whole other conversation. But anyway,
it's quite I suppose it's socially acceptable now. It's sanitized to a certain degree. It doesn't come with all the ickiness that the THC does, because it kind of consequentially of the marketing of CBD. It's arisen because of that, which is again why I share your skepticism.
It's Soma, isn't it? It's I don't know if you've read Brave New World.
Big fan.
I mean, I think I've done about 60 milligrams of CBD, the biggest dose I've had, and I was properly I was on Valium. Like, my partner at the time was like, we went out dancing in Bristol, and she was like, where were you all night? Like, as in, you know, because I was just like, I had a good night, but I was like, so I still don't think people understand that particular cannabinoid anyway.
No, they don't.
It's because they've marketed it as They've marketed it as non-psychoactive because it's not psychoactive in the same way as THC is. We know it's psychoactive by the nature and the definition of what a psychoactive compound is.
Definitely.
We also know that it affects other minor neurological pathways. It affects serotonin and dopamine production. You know what I mean? Because of the way it regulates the endocannabinoid system. So it branches in so many other ways. And as you said, at a higher dose. This thing in the US now of recreational CBD that's sort of forming. They're putting in big flashy colors, and it's sedation. Because at a high point, it's one of the first academic papers I ever remember reading on this in about 2016. The terminology they used in it will always stick with me because of why they didn't say what they said. They described it as a high dose, a sleep-inducing agent.
Oh, wow, okay.
Sleep-inducing agent, because they couldn't put any further wording towards what it actually is, which is a sedative. Without then a sedative's a psychoactive. They have physiological effects on the body.
Of course they do.
Yeah, so there is then...
They're just going to change your whole emotional... It's going to change your emotions for the day. It's going to then... That's, you know, of course it's psychoactive.
Yeah, and it's not... Sorry, yeah, all I was going to say is that, yeah, because of the narrow marketing of it, partly because of the limitations of regulation and the ability of certain organizations to circumnavigate them, the packaging doesn't make sense. The breakdown of how you actually consume the cannabinoids doesn't make sense. The percentages of whatever else. Still not using in most products cannabis-derived terpenes. We're using food-grade terpenes, which shouldn't be volatilized. They shouldn't be combusted. Heated. Do you know what I mean? There's some that we know that have detrimental effects. I mean, there was a study that came out straight after the launch of Epidiolex that suggested the artificial strawberry flavoring they were using in that to make it kid-friendly has a neurological degrades something neurological. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but there was a big furore about it. At the same time, they were saying that it's only effective for a few weeks.
Wow, okay.
It's strain specific, or rather it's like compound specific.
Whereas
to avoid sort of tolerance with various medical products, you need to be able to take various cultivars, various spectrum profiles, so that your system doesn't adapt to it, or then you don't then stop producing a certain amount of endogenous cannabinoid because you're getting the exogenous amount. You need to keep, it's almost like shadow boxing with it, innit? You got to keep.
Yeah. Such a complex system, isn't it? I mean, it's still I'm still amazed that the endocannabinoid system is so not a thing. Yeah. No, it's not like your nervous system, you know. It's like I like you guys and like probably a lot of the guests you have on. I mean, I think I'm regulating all sorts of things when I use cannabis, CBD and other cannabis. I mean, I figure when it comes to being a teacher, if a kid said to me anything, I'm in a relationship with cannabis. I'd be honest. I still don't think that any, as a parent, I mean, I'm thinking about how my kids now, so I'm a parent, I got three kids, 21, 23 and 25, okay? So I never hid my relationship with cannabis with them. And I kind of was very honest with them once I felt they were at an age to be honest. And I was mainly honest because I didn't want their dad to get nicked. So I was very much like, this isn't something you can show off about. It's not, you can't tell your friends, and we can't be the parents that, as it was by the time they were 16, our family home did become safe spaces for teenagers to come and, experiment. I think that's very important. I think my ultimate aim being a teacher is I'd like to one day to actually go into to be the teacher in school who educates kids about drug use. I mean, that would be ideal. Because I think that we need to be honest with them. We need to talk about the pleasures of drug use, that pleasure's okay. I think we've got some weird thing in this country around pleasure. Okay, we see that in all walks of life. I mean, just got to look at the Carry On films to know how neurotic we are when it comes to pleasure. But drug use is there. I mean, it's all right pleasure's all right. And I think telling kids that this is just bad is terrible. It's not keeping our kids safe at all.
No. It's setting them up to fail in the largest.
It's setting them up to fail
because you lie about a bit of weed.
Exactly. It's like
they go smoke a joint with three of their mates. Like, this was fucking amazing. I didn't die. Nothing terrible happened. And then somebody else offers them something else, so they have to procure their cannabis from a dealer that sells other things, and all of a sudden they're trying amphetamine, they're trying whatever else, and they're going, well, they said one of these will kill me, but I took one of them and it didn't. So what happens if I inject this? And they're lying about that, and you lose all credibility if you lie about drugs as an authority figure. You lose all credibility in every other facet of life. They're not going to listen to you for advice and harm reduction in relationships and in sexual interactions. Driving, they'll not take you seriously in the slightest. They'll go, you square, you don't know shit. You know what I mean? And they rebel.
And then you end up with the society we're living in. Where there's no we got to nurture the next generation. Nurturance. The root of nurturance is honesty and truth and harm reduction. I mean, we could there's pleasures, but there's also, you know, dangers involved. And and I mean, I took my first hit of LSD when I was 15. I sort of talked to my kids and said, you probably want to wait longer before you start messing around with psych. I mean, I have no regrets, but yeah, I probably wouldn't advise. I'd probably always advise against too much dabbling with the developing brain. But that's the same with eating sugar or drinking alcohol or playing computer games 16 hours a day, you know.
Or indoctrination into an education paradigm that doesn't serve the child but serves the state.
Yeah, but
development.
The lack of contextuality as well. Contextuality, is that a word? Fuck it, I'm going with it.
Lack of context when talking about drugs. Yeah, for sure.
Do you know what I mean? Cause...
Definitely. But I was coming back. So my kids now are all have very functional relationships with drugs because of our parenting, because we were honest, because we were open, because we provided safe spaces, which are sometimes a bit of a nightmare as a parent, providing a safe space for teenagers to experiment. But it's either that or they're out in the cold doing it. Yeah,
exactly. They're going to do it anyway.
Who better than a teacher? Or, you know, but you were.
I wasn't a teacher at the time.
You weren't, but you were of that mindset. Is my point, right?
Yeah.
You know that kind of way. So whether or not you're a fucking piece of paper that says you are is fucking nonsense.
But it's also a lived experience. So when those kids now, if any point in the future, you're saying they're all in their early to mid 20s, at any point in the future they struggle with the dependency to anything, they know you will have their back. You're not going to demonize them and force them a rock bottom and go, well, I'm not going to help you. You've done this to yourself. No. You know what I mean? So that in itself, the security of that is going to prevent them from having that dependency.
Yeah.
The dependency typically comes around when somebody finds, like I did, that drugs work, but all of the health workers, all of the educators, all of the parents and everyone else around me is saying that you're horrible for doing this.
Right,
ruining your life. And then I sit alone, having had these wonderful entheogenic experiences going, I've managed to see the trauma of my youth and heal and experience things. And you're telling me I'm bad for that, and I should be locked in a box? Are you fucking mental?
Yeah, exactly. It's we until we start like telling the kids the truth about all sorts of things. Then I don't know. So
sorry, I've got a question for you, and it might be a pretty difficult one, but
sure.
Feel free not to answer it. I'll give you that out because I don't know what I would say in this situation if I was still a teacher. So having worked in quite a few schools because of being a private or external music teacher, I didn't stick to one really. But every single one that I worked in had religion entrenched in its foundation, absolutely rock fucking solid within the whole mindset of the teaching ethos. And that was quite problematic for me, being Irish and having it fucking force fed down my throat for quite a long time. But I mean, how do you see getting around that obstacle? Because here's the thing, an awful lot of that what I would say historic experience that I would have with religion, especially within schools and whatnot, is that you have to conform to this model, and any sort of drug consumption is an absolute fucking no-no. Do you know what I mean? It's demon shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a big obstacle, I think.
Yeah. So, well, this is my first teaching job. And probably be my last after I've done this.
Hopefully not.
You have an out. You have a legitimate out. You do not have to talk about this.
You know what? I'm going to be like 40. What am I going to be this year? 21. So I'm going to be 48 this year. Yeah. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm weary. I'm weary of just like, of having to like, I mean, I'm not going to then go the opposite extreme and like necessarily be explicit, but I am weary of having to worry, about this. And I figure that I'd make such a racket if ever I was either something happened at school or, I've got to the stage now where the authorities, and if they're listening, just bring it on, because I will make such a noise. I know there's so many people in my life who would vouch for me that I can't be asked anymore. Coming back to your question about religion, so the school I work at is quite secular, really, although there's a lot of Christianity in the little town. It's historically got it's got a real Christian
feeling to it
and history to it, and it's the first, I think. I won't say what the school is.
No.
But actually, the RE department, because I've taught a bit of RE, actually they're all right, and the scheme of work they've been using for what's it called? Not PDP, professional development, and has been quite good. But yeah, there is still a underlying thing of Christianity. I mean, I taught a lesson to make it balanced. They talk about did a lesson about morality that's not based in, So I think Stephen Fry was probably used in one of the clips. So talking about morality, I'm not a big fan of the word morality. I prefer the term ethics. Things that are ethical. Something's ethical. Something has ethics to it. Yeah. Morality, I think, is too divisive. I mean, what is moral? And
to interject a second, I feel, to me personally, moral from moralizing is a judgment. Where I think ethical is a standpoint. I can stand on my ethics, but I don't have to inflict them on you. Whereas my morality, I have to save you. You're wrong. You're damned.
It's inherently polarizing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And
ethics can mean ethics can be very simply put down to I'm not going to. I'm not going to do anything that's going to cause misery to anyone, or at least go about my life trying not to do anything that causes misery to anyone. I'm going to try and leave as little shit on the planet. Hopefully, leave a little less shit than when I was here, even if it's a fucking minuscule amount of less shit. So this is an ethical life, but moralizing. It's too many. Sex and drugs. People's standpoint on those two taboos that are still, big taboos in our society about honest conversations. There's too much. There's moralizing and morals, and so your question, I haven't really had to.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. I appreciate it. I actually thinking about it now. It was a very cruel fucking question to ask you in the first place.
You see, I wasn't brought up. I was brought up with capitalism as my religion.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, so
that was force fed, I'd say, was it?
Oh yeah, I mean, my dad was a Jew, but he pretty much he kind of rejected Judaism for Thatcherism, I suppose. I mean,
neoliberalism.
Yeah, I suppose he was right there at the start of UKIP. So as a Jew, as a teenager, I used to say to him, how is this? What is this? So he's a Scot as well, and a Scottish Jew, and he was big into. I don't know if you remember Kilroy Silk was the geezer who started UKIP.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I know the name, but I think that's before me on my time.
What a name.
Oh, mate. Fucking... Anyway, so I wasn't really brought up with religion. So when I was a teenager, I suppose, when I was getting involved with psychedelics, so I've totally digressed and gone off.
Fine, keep going.
But so I became a very fluffy-headed psychedelic journeyer. So I became very if someone could easily have taught me into joining a cult probably as a teenager, because I was so looking and so open and looking for answers. But I've got over that now.
But
I'm joking. That sounds harsh. I don't mean
but
that.
I think that's not a susceptibility of youth. I think that
no,
obviously
you're right.
we go into it, the gusto of youth, but if you look at, say, the weaponization of LSD by Charles Manson on the Manson and the programming, look at the 23 years of experiments with Sandoz and the CIA. There's an extensive history on this kind of activity, so we know the kind of consequences and effect of this, and ultimately this is why LSD still carries the worst prison sentence in this country. You can get 25 to life for production and distribution of LSD in this country in the 21st century.
That's insane.
It's not because it's not because of the overdose rate or anything like that. It's not because of permanent induced psychosis or persistent hallucination disorder. I butchered that disorder, but it's not because of any of those things, in my opinion. It's because of the deprogramming. Within one evening session, you strip the veil of everything you've been taught, the monoliths of religion, of capitalism, of this very structure of society suddenly falls apart against instinct, emotion, and knowledge. You intrinsically have this connection to everything that has been and everything that will be, and you can kind of see this and you can change. I've seen racist, bigoted, hateful men turn into cuddly, beautiful people that have gone off to give their lives volunteering. You know what I mean? Just off one experience that have gone such profound.
Yeah, I know. It's psychedelics are profound. I mean, they're just. I mean.
They're also dangerous.
They're also dangerous, and they're also. What I find fascinating is people who have psychedelic experiences, and it doesn't seem to do that. It just inflates. I've seen people whose egos seem to have been inflated by the Charles Manson, classic example.
Well, look at what we're seeing at the minute with the coalition between conspiratorial right-wing ideology and spiritualism. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of people doing yoga and meditating that are like, send the darkies back. Do you know what I mean? But it's a growing community, and it's quite scary.
Well, that's shadow stuff, isn't it?
But they're using psychedelics in the wrong setting.
Yeah, of course.
So they're doing it around ideas, and they're discussing concepts, and they're leading themselves into a new restricted framework of thinking, rather than truly taking themselves to a point of, frankly, as I would say, vulnerability with an entheogenic substance, because that's what it is. Accepting your reality, accepting the experience, and then doing the hard integration work of understanding what the fuck that means and how that's relevant to your life, because it's all relevant.
Which is ongoing. Integration work's ongoing. There's no arrival. I mean, it's constantly ongoing for sure.
It's just an interesting bit there. I'm wondering, do we just have two very simple sort of thought processes here? And I'm wondering if we're given the people who what am I trying to say? People who put like of authority that want to fucking restrict this. I'm wondering I'm like, I can just see somebody of that disposition, right, in a room watching somebody like the start of Pineapple Express. I don't know if you've seen the start of Pineapple Express, right? So there's a guy on the other side of that window watching what's happening after somebody's gone and fucking had a tab of LSD or something, right? And they go, fucking, that shit is bananas. Fuck that. Done. Out the fucking door. And that's the end.
There you go.
Yeah. And that's the end of that. And then, like, on the sort of the misinterpretation of say the journey that you would have been dragged on through psychedelics, and its relationship with the ego in a sort of perverse way is going, it leads to this like cult-esque manipulation, you know, that kind of way. It's like, this is the messages, and we're gonna fucking, as you've said, I can't remember what you said, but some fucking racist thing that I don't want to fucking repeat anyway. But you see what I'm saying? So it comes back to contextuality. Well, hey, there's my word of the day.
Yeah, no, context is it's important, isn't it? You can't just.
And through restriction, through non-education, we're never going to get past this fucking thing. We're just gonna end up fucking oscillating again in place. Sorry.
So a big thing that I think plays.
Maybe we just need to get out of England.
Well, there is growing movements for independence of all of the individual kingdom nations. To be fair, it's looking far more likely that we will live to see a unified Ireland than we will a unified United Kingdom again.
Oh God, yeah, I know.
So it's but to one last point on what we previously stated is. There is a point of either ego dissolution, some people call it ego death, but it isn't. It's a temporary cessation of the internal narrative of I am this is who I am, and this is how I react to things. I was brought up this way, so I will do this. I believe this. And that constant woof, and that's who you believe you are, and you are not. Yeah. Freud pointed it out to be the ego, the superego, or the id. Yeah. You know, the Buddha describes, even Jesus describes in different point ways in the Old Testament of processes where you quieten yourself to be with yourself. It is a literal experience where psychedelics can literally have a boom, and to an external person, it can look psychotic. I've had moments where I've literally been in darkened rooms, cuddling bath towels like in the bathroom, talking my way through a difficult experience. Yeah, but coming out of the other side of that, amazing.
Yeah,
you know I mean? Like I mean, like, oh my God, I am powered. You know what I mean? I know far more about myself ever before. But besides doing it in the right sort of setting, and I had that trust in myself, and I also knew what to expect. Expectation drives outcome. So if you're one of these people that look at and you want to be, it's the false spiritual and the false ego. They want to find that path. So that's just a new ego game. That's just a new ego play. That's a new trip in the old sort of 60s.
It's also like we talk about light seekers. So, people who are seeking, who focus on seeking the light, and meanwhile they're leaving shit everywhere behind them because they're not dealing with their shadow. That
talk about hippies.
Well, it's not even. I suppose it's that, but it's the integration, and it's that awareness that we're light and dark, and we're all we're all these things together, and you can't just be. Yeah. I mean, obviously, the light's great, but I think you've got to be aware of all aspects of yourself.
I think it's a true analogy that the brighter the light shines, the bigger shadow it can cast, and this is why often those that shine the brightest have the darkest past. And so I think it's true of a case of responsibility, as you say, as a consequence, partly of my sort of upbringing and the world in which I was brought up in and raised in. I was left quite maladaptive in my behaviors, my thoughts, my processes, and some of the mental health consequences that arose from this. It took me many years to recognize my shadow and to stop blaming my shadow, to stop saying that society's fault that I have that, instead of now recognizing what it is. I mean, I follow a vegan diet and lifestyle. You know, I mean, everything I do, I try to reuse everything. I'll go years with the same pair of shoes. You know, I mean, I only wear the t-shirts the company sends us effectively. I don't. I don't help prop up the systems that I don't believe in, and by doing that, that's my attempt to lessen my shadow.
But I mean,
that's the responsibility we have as humans. The one obligation we have is to reduce the harm we have by the nature of us being here.
It is an absolute right, but an awful lot of the headlines will guilt you into, or not guilt you, but sort of perpetuate that guilt of you not complying to this thing. Oh, you haven't recycled this week, or you know what I mean.
You see, I make a point of talking to kids like this, so I'll say, I'll say it's great that you recycle. It's great that we use like light bulbs. It's great that you talking about cycling and all these things, but until Tesco's. And I say to them, you've seen Tesco's at night. Until Tesco's turns all its lights off, things aren't going to change. It's like, so on the one hand, personal responsibility, we can all do, but actually, it's not just about personal responsibility, because people have to go to work. People have to, people get home, they haven't got time. The system's a fucker, isn't it? I mean, people are struggling, and then to expect people to have to sort of worry about the planet,
to have the capacity to care.
To have people, we're living in, particularly, it's getting worse as well, as we probably all agree. This government is it's really outdoing itself in its attitude to the people of this country. I mean,
it's indifference. It is nothing.
I think there's cruelty as well. I think there's actually implicit cruelty. I was talking with my partner yesterday, and we were talking about the concept of if you're wealthy, like really wealthy, you're going to get bored because there's only so much you can have. There's only so much, and especially if you start seeing people who aren't wealthy kind of enjoying life, okay, that's gonna fucking irk you. So why have I got all this wealth and blah 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 if these people here are like happy? Like, for instance, if we could all grow our weed, or or whatever, if things were facilitated, because we know you don't need loads of money to be happy. That's just, we all know that. You need a certain amount because we live in a capitalist system, so you've got to have money. This whole what was that geezer's name who wrote a book? It really irritated me, How to Live a Year Without Money. It's just like, I can't remember his name. Everyone went mental over it.
Did he perhaps start with a house and all of his shit paid?
Well, it's just whatever. It's just whatever.
I've seen a few of those videos exactly like that. Oh, I lived a year, by just growing stuff in. Hold on, you lived in California one. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
you've got constant fucking growing climate.
Yeah, exactly. We need money, but they rely on us. I'm talking in days now. I try to avoid that.
It's a bit polarizing.
Yeah, I'm sort of I tickle myself indulging in conspiracy theories, but the majority of them I can take and leave, really, because I think humans are a lot more messy than conspiracy theories neatly pack up. But I do think when I say they, I'm talking like people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, or specific people who I think are quite cruel individuals. They need people to be suffering.
It fits their worldview, and it helps them.
And it helps them enjoy. And it helps them enjoy their place in the hierarchy. If people are suffering,
I can only be high if they are low. Yeah, and I think what you're talking about there, it's not just it crosses all political spectrum. It crosses all races. Yeah. Unfortunately, weirdly, it crosses all classes. There is something in people that the ruling system should be. There should be a monarchy, and there should be people born into entitlement. And I suffer because that's how they, and people don't question that, because, as I was saying before, it's indoctrinated through the education paradigm, which is why if we could end up in a world where people like you two, who happen to have got the experience of teaching, could then both become drug teachers. Could you imagine if there was an educational package within education at the right time in puberty when kids can get exposed to these things? But again, even that, I've just thought about it. We'd only need that now. If all drugs were legalized, you wouldn't be able to get anything because you have to be 18.
Exactly.
The only reason there is access for smaller things, unless it was home exposure, which is what we do with alcohol. So from 5 years old in this country, a child can consume alcohol within the home.
Exactly.
And that helps you get a relationship with it, to control that, to remove the taboo, and to allow that child to then not go, I'm 18, I can drink and try and kill themselves on their first time out, like I nearly did on my 18th. I blacked out for 2 days, basically.
You know what I mean?
And really? And I'd already done it as a teenager. I binge drank when I was younger, but when I was 18, it was accepted. So all of the staff at the supermarket I was working with were like, we're going to get you fucked up tonight, kid. So it was like 3 litre fish bowls of shit, and everybody, you know what I mean? And there's no limit, because the pressure is, it's not even recognized, because it's just cultural. Everyone's just like, oh, it's good time. Whereas if we had that attitude with other drugs, everyone would be like, what the fuck is going on? So there needs to be an equaling. We need to bring other drugs up and then be realistic around tobacco, caffeine, sugar, alcohol.
Oh, God,
we need to have these kind of conversations to proportionalize the harms and the benefits of all substances. Nothing is pure and innocent, and nothing is truly evil.
No, exactly.
Everything has a space and a benefit, and until we have that rational conversation around it.
No, it seems like we're so far away from it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look, it's weird because we're tiptoeing close with one bit and then we're walking away with the other. So the medicinalization of LSD, of ketamine, of MDMA, of cocaine, all of these things have increased massively in the past 5 to 10 years. To the point the FDA has approved a cocaine spray, it's approved an MDMA drug, it's approved a cannabis-based drug, it's approved a ketamine-based drug. In the history of it, up to a few years ago, it went fuck you to everything like this. So what they're now doing is they're medicinalizing these street drugs or these party drugs or recreational substances so that they can profiteer from them while still perpetuating the criminalizing of people on the other end of the spectrum.
Totally.
You know what I mean? We should have our cultural rights to get together.
This is why we need you were saying, I think we were talking about a decrim or a legal system, and that's, ultimately we need a legal system, in my opinion. But decrim is a step to that. So it's often I see people get into silly arguments about this, like, it's like, you could decriminalise it tomorrow. So like Sean Berry's essentially asking for is a form of decriminalisation, by telling the police not to criminalise cannabis is a form of decriminalisation. But that's just that can only be a stopgap to the development of a fully legal system.
It's my fear though that just the dither and delay to use a trope that they tried to fucking demonize Jeremy Corbyn with is just to put up the infrastructure of just pure capitalist or neoliberalist exploitation.
Well, this is why Totally agree. So I've been screaming about this for years. It seems like, and for a long time, I felt like a voice on my own. So when it came to Green Party, politically, I was voting Green anyway. Because I came from my exposure to Labour was, Tony Blair really, and I never voted for Blair. And
not Labour.
It's fun. Yeah. So I'm teaching some Middle East geography, so I want them to learn about the 2003 Iraq War. So I've been rewatching that. It's a real downer watching it. My partner's going, why am I hearing Tony Blair doing this 2003 shit?
Me.
And like
PTSD flashbacks.
Oh yeah, but there's so many good people like Mo Molam, who was in the Labour Party, who's doing good shit. But anyway, so I was Green Party, and I was looking at their drug policy, and I was like, this is like really good. They're the only people, and it was a guy called Shane Collins who's pretty much taken the drug policy from way back in like the 90s, from like the Free Party days. He was really sound. He was like, do what you want with it, you remember? So I had an activist account. It was about 2014. I had an activist account, which was, like I said, I had a YouTube channel. It was doing all right. But I was like, this isn't really doing much. So I emailed Natalie Bennett at the time. I was like, look, I'm an activist. And a Green Party member. Can I just turn my Facebook and my social media into Green Party drug policy? And she was like, go for it.
Nice.
So, yes. And then, so I was saying about screaming. So I've been like, screaming about a drug framework, a drug system that's basically based in a more socialist, kind of framework, maybe a bit anarchist, so like a bit anarchist as well, socialist anarchist. That isn't profit driven, okay? So, and no one seemed to like, especially thinking about cannabis. It's always been about like, legalize it legally, like, and it's almost like, that's going to happen, but it's not about that, is it? It's about, am I going to be allowed to grow a plant? That's the real, for me, it's always been the real crux of the argument is who's going to be allowed to grow this?
Indeed.
Yeah. And it still is. And, who's going to profit from the green rush? We know that there's huge amounts of money to be made here. And we know this is where, Hanway Brothers, Cannabis Europa, all these things suddenly popping up, all these chancers, capitalists popping up, because they know it's coming.
Yeah. But not only do they know it's coming, at this point now, they are setting the framework. Yeah. They are deciding the legislation that best benefits their financial interests. Yeah. So what you were talking about before, obviously, those two words will scare a lot of people, socialist and anarchist.
Yeah.
Whereas one of what I've been sort of discussing, me and Maka have mentioned in previous podcasts and whatnot, is the idea of, say, a nationalized and community-driven cannabis industry. Yeah. So instead of allowing the Tilrays of the world, or even quite frankly, a lot of the established companies in the UK to run this industry and sell this to us, we should create cottage industry. We should literally be going to the police records and CPS records, whoever was prosecuted for cannabis, going, you guys get to the front of the fucking queue. You have a skill set. We are going to set you up with a grant. We are going to get you to grow all of this, establish a framework of social enterprise clubs with community interest companies. And profit shouldn't be a dirty word. We should be making profit, but it shouldn't be sitting in bank accounts in the fucking Caymans. We should be paying a good value-added tax to the product. We should then be paying our business rates. We should then be utilizing the rest of that money to fund social enterprise in the community. Drug rehabilitation and reform for the small minority of people that have drug dependency issues. We need to get realistic and have that conversation that the vast majority of people that use all drugs do so non-problematically. And the problems arise when they're fucking caught with it.
Yeah, totally. Well, totally.
Sorry, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm quite anti-profit, full stop, to be honest. I don't see the point in it as a concept. Simply because, like, once you've got your food and your shelter and you've put aside the money that you need to keep whatever thing you're doing going, what's profit for?
Exactly.
Profit, unfortunately, is a consequence of a mechanism of inflation and interest. Because everything always is increasing, you have to continue to make profit. Otherwise, in 3 years, your calculations are irrelevant.
But
so
that profit... But that profit, if that's what I'm saying, is that profit. So if you have a social enterprise or you have a that profit's just reinvested. That profit's not there available for people to get better cars or bigger houses.
Yeah. So I think I'm sorry, I'm confusing.
I'm all for
an interpretation of the term. I think I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah,
profit is in terms of gluttonous. Just here's a stack of cash for me to go sit on my yacht. Yeah. Agreed. But the idea of above overheads, surplus. Sorry, I misinterpreted kind of what you said. So then I agree with you entirely. Yeah, there shouldn't be just dividends paid out to idiots that just happen to be sat in the right place at the right time. It should help the very community and industry that it's supporting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, of course. And I suppose you'd write that. You'd integrate that into the whole framework. That would be. Yeah,
ideally.
I mean, from a non-business perspective, like from a personal perspective, I'm obsessed with. I've probably said this on podcasts before. I'm obsessed with a lot of things, right? But this is one key part: is like removing myself from this obligation that is what I use a poor term to describe it, which is modern day slavery, right? It's a poorly coined term, but it expresses what I'm talking about. And for me, like I have thought about the number, the actual final number that gets me out of this thing, right? And it's not like this like whimsical fucking I need millions or anything this, right? You can get it down to your absolute necessity and then drive towards achieving that and removing yourself from that expected model. Now the thing is, right, in that what you've said there is, what is profit after that? Well, profit to me after that would be anything that I have surplus goes to the people that are fucking around me that are struggling and fucking need that help. Because I'm sorted now. Do you know that kind of way? I've gotten to that point in a non-business model where I'm not vying for the constant inflation or whatever. I mean, it's a pipe dream at the moment, but it's something that I would absolutely love to do.
People can't regulate themselves though.
Well, they can if you remove external pressure and stimuli. If we removed advertising, if we removed the fact that we're all hypnotized into watching that damn thing several hours a day, staring at our phone the rest of the
Simple
time,
actions.
Reading books, we see thousands of adverts and brands every goddamn day. It is so in our face that the psychologists reckon that because of the repetition of like these cycles that we go through with behavior, that we perform a minute amount of decisions a day. We're actually just in this gameplay of just going, I'm this, and that narrative speaks us into it, and we just follow it and we don't question it.
Hypnopedia.
A wonderful thing, again, why psychedelic and entheogenic substances are perfect for it. But if you were to remove that stimuli, people's behaviors would change massively. If you don't bombard them with a Rolex and the beautiful girls horning over them because of links or whatever, then
I'll tell you,
that association.
Yeah, I mean, I was in my 20s. I was militantly anti-advertising. Once I saw Bill Hicks, it was all over for me. I mean, me and my partner and our friends, we started a record label. We had a music publishing business. I taught myself music law. We had a roster of good music, and we made some inroads into the independent music industry, but we were anti-advertising because we were in our 20s and we were all like idealistic and like, young parents, idealistic, changing the world. We wore our heart on our sleeves, and we basically got blacklisted from the Association of Independent Music. We were told, we got a visit from a CEO, and basically we're told you'll never get anywhere in the music industry.
Lovely. That's lovely, isn't it? Fucking ray of sunshine, that person is. Anyway, well, what I say to you is there any of the acts that you were working with still going?
Oh no, I still make music. It's still there. But that's
Give yourself a plug, mate, for fuck's sake.
Go
on.
Where would I start? Our music's crazy, mate. People listen to it and it's like, what is that? Okay.
Good.
Read the comments. What do you think people say after this podcast?
Okay, so a recent thing I did was with my partner and a friend was called Play Because. Spelled CLAIBEKAS.
Nice one.
It's accessible, isn't it? Really good marketing campaign. How do you spell that? Oh, fuck.
Tell me this: is it a YouTube thing, or is it Spotify? If people wanted it, or
I've got music on Spotify, of course. So I've got my. I made an EP in 1999. Me when our first child was born, we moved up to Wales. Lived on Mount Snowdon actually for a year.
Nice.
There's a little cottage on Mount Snowdon. We sort of found it, rented it, ran a cafe out of it. In fact, and I'm not disclosing whether I have any cultivation habits today as a teacher, because obviously I don't. But it was the first time I grew a plant. So that's like 22 years ago under a light. It was me and my mate went and bought ourselves a light and. Yeah, and so I recorded an EP then actually that's on Spotify.
Oh yeah. What's the band name?
That's me. That's just Jay Levity.
Just Jay.
Jay.
Yeah.
Levity.
Levity. Okay, correct.
Levity, yes. Okay,
right.
Yeah.
We put in a little link in that.
Find that in the bio below.
So just a little plug for you. And you're still going with that?
I still make music. I mean, I got disheartened making music for I sort of stopped, but yeah, it's something that doesn't. You're a music man as well. It's not. I've got a couple of speakers there. I've started making some stuff again. It's not something that you can
get away from.
Try and leave me alone.
I'll tell you something. I swear to God, I verbalized that before. It's like there's two guitars in this room, and they look at me. They stare at me. They go, "What the fuck, man? Are you gonna fucking play me or something?" Honestly, I could just see it in my periphery.
Yeah.
Just going,
and I'm like, "You've caused me nothing but fucking pain."
Yeah, no, it's the same.
No,
I mean,
it's not as bad as that, but...
we're finishing up. Myself and a friend of mine. I'm going to put myself a plug. Fuck you, Simpa. We are Silent Voices is the Instagram page, but it's Silent Voices, which is an amalgamation of names. Myself and Pedro, the other member of the band, is. So I had a.
How'd you spell that?
Silent, as in I'm.
Oh, silent.
Silent.
Silent Voices. Sorry.
Don't worry, I've followed you on Twitter already. I'm not stalking you or anything.
That's fine.
But no, I mean we're finished. We released a couple of singles last. So last November, September, something like that,
okay.
and we were just finishing off an album, but we were writing the whole thing through WhatsApp. Not through WhatsApp, but through social media, because he lives down in London, and I'm up north now, so. We don't get to see each other, so we just send each other some stuff, and I just that sounds fucking cool. It's kind of like a digital version of a modern version of the Postal Service. I don't know if you ever listened to the Postal Service.
I know of them, but I don't know their music.
Conceptually, mind, not from a fucking musical perspective. Just in case, because there was a band called Death Cab for Cutie.
And
quite a few other artists, and they literally sent each other tapes in the post and worked on each other's stuff, having never met each other, and it was like
tapes as well.
I think it was tapes back.
Wow.
It might have been 4-track tapes. It might have been like memory sticks, which kind of ruins the whole fucking thing, the appeal to it. But
do you call yourself a musician?
Here's the thing: it's very difficult because I like to think that I am, and people tell me that I am, and people that I've have taught me.
But because you haven't got legitimized by some
label, right,
or whatever,
it's a side project for me because I have to work. If I didn't have to work, I'd sort of subliminally accept myself more as a musician, and that's a crux that I live with. It's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit.
Of course it is. I mean, I'm the same. I'm like, I put musician in a bio, then I take it away, then I put it there, and I fucking I still, like I say, I still have trouble integrating all of who I am, and I don't. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to say I'll do this, because you sound. I bore myself. Do you know what I mean? It's like
I get sick of myself all the time. Here's one for you, and we can drop the music thing because he's up there by himself having a little hug. But one thing that it took me a while to get over was like when I wasn't writing or was in a period of block or just laziness, or I wasn't fucking doing it, and I'd go to gigs and I'd watch people play and I'd go, oh, wasn't that great? I could definitely do that better. And I go, bullshit. Your man's fucking, he's up there fucking shredding it. Like, you know what I mean? Hit one fucking bomb note, and I'm going, nah, I could do that better. Bollocks.
Yeah, so that's
ego.
I hear that. Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. I feel what I've told myself now is when I'm like 70, when I'm in my 70s, then I can play the guitar like some old dude.
Johnny
and
Cash.
maybe I'll just leave it until then, and then I won't give a fuck. Do you know what I mean?
Might get a record label then. Fuck.
Yeah. Well, who knows what the world will look like? Will there be that kind of thing? Maybe. I just heard today. So I released our music through AWOL, Artists Without Labels.
Nice.
Have you heard of them?
I have. Yeah.
Well, they've just been bought by Sony, so they're no longer Artists Without Labels.
It is what it is, man. It is what it is. It is what it is. Anyway, Simpa, would you like to come back into this conversation?
Yeah. Well, we digressed totally then, didn't we?
That was enjoyable. It's allowed me to rest my voice. I can empathise with the pair of you completely, obviously, as a writer. When I was first doing stuff, obviously, I had a lot of work published with sort of Ice Smoke and whatnot, and it wasn't until I had something in print media in Weed World, and then when I held it, I was like, I can't not be a writer. No. I wrote this, they published it, I'm holding it. I can't not be a writer. So even if I cease writing from this point, I was at least at one point a writer. Do you know what I mean? And I think that I do the same in terms of with the fluctuator. Sometimes I'll introduce myself to people. I'm a podcaster. I'm an activist. I'm a writer. And it depends on, I suppose, which facet of my skill set that I'm feeling most confident in at the time.
Yeah, that's good though, isn't it? I mean,
but I think humility is the best thing that works with it. Is to why people stick with things for a long period of time. You know what I mean? Why you hone a craft, why you actually enjoy it. And a good healthy amount of self-criticism allows you to create much better work and be more satisfied with a thing that even if it doesn't go anywhere. I've got hundreds of other articles that I've started out, work that I've written on that I haven't wanted to publish anywhere because I don't know, it's just not that thing's time or whatever. It's just but it's helped me hone the skills for the things that I did produce and the things that I do want to produce, you know?
Yeah, but I'll tell you, taking that creative path though, in any way, shape, or form, there's obviously commonalities. We started by talking about commonalities. You know what I mean? We're just people. It's not you're a podcaster. You're fucking simple, mate. I'm Macca. That's what it is. And what it is sort of, I don't know. It's our constant desire for identification of self.
Yeah. Which is society. Society puts this pressure on us to be something. So what are you? And it's like, well, you know, it depends how I'm feeling when I wake up. I'm also a cook. I was a chef for 20 years. I trained as a chef after school. When I'm cooking dinner for my family, it's like this pressure that you've got to be something.
It's specific. You've got to choose, exactly. But it's bullshit. It's utter bullshit. And here's the thing. Any form of learning in any capacity is, do you know what I mean? Everybody's a fucking chef. You just, I mean, if you've never cooked before in your life, you're a chef. You're just not very good at it. Do you know what I mean? It just takes practice and education.
I'm a good chef, mate.
I'm sure you are.
You know, the thing is, I kind of excel at whatever I do. Do you know what I mean?
I'm only slagging, mate. Do you know what I mean?
I'm joking.
It's about ease of categorization. So think about it. In every professional capacity, even most of us get taught it outside of school and we don't know quite why. You meet somebody new and you go, what do you do?
Yeah.
What kind of a fucking stupid question is that?
Well,
what do I do today? What am I dedicated? Exactly. No, but that's what we are. And to do that, you lock them down in that identity. So you go, he's a chef. So you put every assumption you've ever made, every film, every person, that's who that person is. You don't know their idea.
Cool. I'm sorted now. I feed you in.
Yeah, exactly. And that diminishes the very nature of communication and contact. And that is the foundation. And that is what has been eroded most in our society, is the ability for people who may share one or two commonalities to come together in any which way in a podcast like this, sat around a fire at a festival, in a pub somewhere, whatever, turning around on a train, to have that interaction and to genuinely, sincerely be there and recognize that other human, their light and their shadow, as you said before,
totally.
Take them in and then use them as the mirror that the human is to another person.
Mirrors, totally.
To see the fallacies of themselves, to go, the judgments I put on you, the shortcomings I see in myself.
I'm a big believer in that mirror thing, because really, you don't go through life. I don't really meet many people I dislike. Yeah. So I mean, I've always been, whenever I've been in workplaces, I've always been like a kind of an intermediate individual who's sort of often fielding things from people like, that person doesn't like that person. Well, you don't like that person. And, you know, obviously we'll bring a bit of our shit to things, but yeah, I think it's try and bring as little of your own shit to people.
Don't be a dickhead. Simple.
Own it. You
own it.
There are ways to own it, and it's not then own it as in wear it as a badge. Don't you go, this is because of my mental illness or because this happened. No. You can't do that. You have to face, accept, integrate, and then move the fuck forward. And it's going to be painful and it's going to be difficult. And life is not meant to be easy. I'm sick of this fallacy that we're not supposed to have anxiety, that we're not supposed to feel depression, that we're not supposed to feel terrified at times. The existential crisis of being human and sentient is fucking terrifying. And for then the doctor to go, here's some goddamn pills and here, go talk to a professional who is no more a fucking talking monkey than you are.
Well, you've seen Princess Bride?
Yeah.
Many years ago, I think.
Life is pain. Anyone who tells you anything different is trying to sell you something. One of my favourite quotes. That I love that film. We used to watch that with my kids. Such a good movie.
That is actually, I get confused with that and another one, but that's the one where with the wine, isn't it? And the
sword fight, I killed my father.
That's mate. If you've not seen that, you've got to see that film. It's funny,
I'm curious to see what you were going to confuse it with, because in my head I went to Princess Blade,
Pride and Prejudice.
I think is a South Korean movie about she's like a samurai lady that cuts up like zombies or some shit.
Oh wow! Okay.
They were crazy. I remember I went to a whole thing of like of Asian cinema.
Me too.
Like Japan.
That one.
Because the wonderful thing, horror genre especially, conveys cultural truths and fears. It shows this universal commonality. You want to talk about the thing that actually shows commonality? They do far better than the fucking romance bloody movies that then inflict their version of relationships on a society.
Have you seen Audition?
Yeah. The original.
The original one, yeah.
Is it? I'm thinking of something else that got remade. Yeah, I know Audition.
Audition.
That's mental.
Fucked. Oh, man.
Isn't it?
The most crazy shit I've ever seen is Gozu. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I think that's Takeshi
I don't know
Miike.
that.
I think it's Takeshi Miike. Have you ever seen any of his stuff? Fuck me.
Takeshi.
Hang on.
Yeah.
I've got to bring this up now and not make a fucking tit of myself like I normally do.
Do a bit of research.
Yeah, but you've seen Itchy the Killer, right? Have you seen Old Boy?
Itchy the Killer, Old Boy. That's what I meant when I said the original. Yeah, the original, because they remade Old Boy, didn't they? I haven't seen that.
That does not exist for me.
No, I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it. I'm all right. The original was fucking amazing.
Have you seen it? It's a trilogy. It's called the Revenge Trilogy.
That's the one.
No sympathy for Mr. Vengeance.
I haven't.
Lady Vengeance. Lady Vengeance is the third.
Old Boy and something else, and it's all stories of revenge. And
I've only seen Old Boy.
And they've actually, if you really strip them back, they're kind of tales of. You can almost sum up Old Boy into the Buddhist quote of wanting revenge, and another is like holding a hot coal. You know what I mean? With the intent to throw it at them, you're hurting yourself, and the outcome's only going to be negative.
The end of Old Boy. No spoilers at all if you've not seen it. But
no, if you haven't seen it, please go. If you haven't seen it, guys, go watch the original Old Boy with the subtitles. It's going to be a mindfuck, but the cinematography, the way it's shot, and the way that they lead you through the narrative is like nothing else you see in Western cinema. And the remake butchered it because it just westernized it without understanding the philosophy or what it was trying to convey in the original context.
And speaking of bullshit westernizations of films, fucking if you've not seen Infernal Affairs, go and fucking watch it.
I've seen the original of that.
Tremendous.
Cop movies.
Amazing film.
The Departed. There is three, but The Departed was one off. I think it was Scorsese did it, and it was practically the same film. But the Infernal Affairs is way better. It's so fucking good. And of course, Battle Royale.
Battle Royale. There's two of those, isn't there?
Yeah. That's crazy.
I'm so glad they haven't, because it couldn't work in a Western context because it's around Japanese cultural sensitivities and
I mean, I'm more of a Studio Ghibli. I'm more of a Studio Ghibli than a horror. My youngest daughter's she's mental on Studio Ghibli, but all of us, it's real like, yeah,
It's wholesome shit.
It is. My that's it. My neighbor
it's wholesome,
Totoro.
Yeah, Totoro, all of them actually.
Wonderful.
But I mean, it's wholesome. But something like Princess Mononoke is quite, it's quite full on, especially when that warthog comes.
Yeah,
that's quite full on.
But the thing is, though, right? I mean, this is just sort of bring in Disney. I know we've digressed.
Yeah,
massively,
Disney.
but it doesn't matter.
I know Disney owns it, but yeah.
It does now, but at the point where is like I've got an awful lot of sort of not necessarily pleasant things to say about Disney, but having said that, like there is an aspect to all Disney films that had that peril, that sense of like sheer fucking terror. Like there was parts. It was Aladdin or Lion King or something. So one of them stuck with me. It didn't scare me or shit. See what I did there. But it was like fuck me. It had that level of really dark creepiness to it, like Jafar or something in Aladdin.
Jafar was pretty dark.
It was heavy. It was full on, man. He was in your fucking
Yeah.
face, manipulating you and stuff like that. And he had the look about him, you know. And that sort of went away. When in the new Pixar
it's got softer and softer and softer because this is what I was complaining about before. But we need to show the spectrum of emotion. If you mollycoddle a kid, you give it an education and experience of the world up to 16, then kick it in the arse and say, "Go make a living or you'll starve to death." And then realize everything you've said is a fucking lie.
Decide on a profession now.
And the films and the media have told them this is the relationship ladder and you have to progress this. This is the career ladder. This is how you socialize. And you're told how to do these things. And if you're not fitting into that tiny minutiae, then you are wrong and evil. Then you will turn to being isolated and disconnected from society. You'd be more prevalent to drug.
The problem is the lies getting harder though, isn't it? Because the reality is there isn't like it's not the 50s, 60s, or 70s, or 80s. Or I mean, the lie maybe was easier then, but now it's obvious that with mechanization and what are you going to do? That's the one thing I struggle as a teacher, I suppose. It's like, I'm teaching them and I try and, I want to inspire kids. And I actually have to say that this is the first job I've ever done that I've actually I fucking love it. Do you know what I mean? I love the interaction with the kids. Kids are great. I'm much happier being around them than going to the staff room. I kind of avoid the adults a little bit.
Yes.
The kids are great and they're open and they're resilient. And so, for instance, thinking about COVID, we're coming back to COVID. You wanted to talk a little bit about COVID, and there's this big furore about kids' mental health. And obviously we're all struggling with mental health problems. Yeah, we're all, anyone who isn't struggling with mental health problems now has probably got the biggest mental health problem, really, because it's full on this, isn't it? I mean, it's full on. But I think it's the parents who are struggling more than the kids, because kids, I think, naturally have a kind of a resilience, a kind of adaptability to them. I'd say some of the nice things are seeing them chatting on the bar when we're in a Zoom meeting. They're all chatting and they're all like full of life. And I know it's still not the interaction, but I think kids are amazingly resilient. And I think this generation, I think this will do something to them for the positive, actually.
Yes.
I think we'll see some real positive benefits of this interruption in the whole churning of things.
I agree with that. I have to say, sorry, Simpa, can I jump in there for a small bit? Mm-hmm. I just I'm hearing this political rhetoric all the time.
I don't give a shit about mental health.
Open the schools. Oh, it's so important for people, for kids to have their education.
Yeah, mate.
Within a fucking misubscribed paradigm of some sort of do you know what I mean? It's like the one thing that I was never taught in school, and it might have been inherent, maybe it was my fault, but it was like once you got ended secondary school or university or whatever it is, there was this cutoff, and then you were out into the world or whatever, you know, that kind of way. And then all of a sudden, all of that stuff that you had to do, constantly learning and getting force fed this stuff, that stops. And it's like, well, you've done that now. You've been educated. That's the biggest fucking lie it will ever proliferate. Do you know what I mean? It's bollocks. You never stop learning. That's what I was saying about you were a chef. You're a fucking. You can work with computers. You can fucking be a musician. You are all of those things now, even if you have never done them. You just have to start. That's all it is. And it's just. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think that exactly what Jules said before. In that it is that disruption, and to me, it's obviously I'm quite anti-establishment in a lot of ways. I can't help but have those tendencies from the upbringing and from my own experience of life and from my own research and understanding. But I feel that as you say, I don't think it's going to affect their socialization skills half as much as people think. Kids these days, they're texting the friends here. They're then playing a game with 20 of them here. They're then in school where, because of the technology, they're actually engaging more. And then they've got the wonderful juxtaposition of here's education, and they're stuck seeing the real world. There is no veil of bullshit. There is no Disneyfication of this. The realities of this are true for adults as they are for kids. So for the first time in many generations, they haven't been mollycoddled into a reality that everything's going to be fine, everything's going to get better. And because of the technology and the fact that the kids, as a teacher, you can stand there and go, this is a fact I got out of my textbook. They can Google and go, according to a survey in 2020, you're fucking wrong, mate. According to this, you know what I mean? And so they are able to now challenge the curriculum in a way that has never been done before. And that means that people like yourselves as teachers are going to have to become adaptive to then it changes the relationship. Exactly. You can't be authoritative. You can't stand over them and dominate them because you're taller than them in a classroom. You can't go. No, but seriously, the damage
you're right.
that kind of teaching does to children. I went to institutions where before they changed the law for child protection, they restrained 7-year-olds like they were prisoners. They would put 3 members of staff on us, cross our legs, hands behind your back, face down so you couldn't spit. I had teeth knocked out. I had fingers broken. And I got off lucky. I got off lucky. Do you know what I mean? And then even when the laws have changed, it's still nowhere fucking near. But that pervades down all the way to mainstream education, where there is still the dominance of the adult and the idea that I am bigger and smarter than you by nature, and that is again wrong.
But it's a facade
that can damage and detach children from.
I'd hope it's I'd hope that's changing in pockets. I mean, it's obviously not changing from the top. I mean, we know that this government,
it changes by people like you, though.
Yeah, I think so.
If we could get people that do drugs, have done drugs, and have alternative views to become teachers. When the kid goes, look, we smoked a joint last week and it made the day funny. Yeah. What was it? What was the culture for?
Exactly.
Have you heard about CBD? Exactly. Have you spoken to this? Rather than going, go to Frank and we're going to suspend you, ruin your life. Your parents will kick you out. You'll get a criminal record when you get caught sleeping on the street.
Totally.
You'll end up taking harder drugs.
And then you learn your lesson then.
Then you'll be in prison and then you'll end up committing suicide by 40. And you've done nothing wrong. The system has failed you time and time again because of the institutional stigma of prohibition. And I'm sorry I'm getting animated.
That's all right. It's good. You're right. You're totally right.
How dare you?
I'll come back round to the drug policy. So when I was, so one thing that got me was like, why isn't the Green Party like shouting about this? Why isn't this like, it's like, do you not realise that this just purely on a vote winner for the young generation? I just did, so I got frustrated with it, and then I sort of I tried to put in some updates to the policy, and it didn't really fly. And then these 2 other members from Hackney Green Party were in Hackney, sort of doing their own things, brought a new policy, reconvened basically this group. Mm-hmm. Alex Armitage and Zoe Garbett, they sort of convened this group, and we spent a year writing this policy, and we're quite we open it out to everyone, but we're also quite it's quite a nice little group of people. Mm-hmm. So I'd say we're the radical end of the Green Party. I think I've said this to Simpa before. Sometimes I feel we've still got to work on the Green Party to convince them. I mean, this development with Sian is amazing, really, because it's like, if she wasn't talking about drug policy, I'd be a little bit like, I'm not sure what I'm doing in this party anymore.
To be fair, if she wasn't, then you can't talk about any other policy. Cannabis now is environmentalism. Cannabis is wealth inequality. Cannabis is homelessness. Yeah. Cannabis is everything at this point. And if you know anything about the plan, you'll know that to be true. Yeah. And so, I agree.
But we're still nuts on the fringes saying that. We're still
God, but when this is at episode 1012 and you're back here again and we're smoking fat blunts and the world's a far better fucking place, we're going to be proven right in the long term, is what I'm saying. But for the listeners and for the audience that aren't aware of what is going on here, this is Sian Berry, who is she was one of the nominated candidates for London Mayor, Lord London Mayor this year for the elections, standing in the Green Party, and she's put forward, or the Green Party put forward, a policy for deprioritization of cannabis, which is effectively what you would consider in your legalese de facto decriminalization. It's not done through legislation. It's done through the inaction of the establishment, kind of how they have in Holland. So the coffee shops that exist in Holland are not a legal entity at this point.
That's true.
They had a discretion of, we'll look the other way, you deal with your shit in-house, we'll criminalize other aspects of it, but what you do there. And they minimized the harm of it and controlled it for a while. Obviously, now they're modifying and looking at more progressive steps forward.
Yeah.
So I agree that this is, sorry to just continue this.
Good.
We've already seen this rolled out by police
have.
forces. Durham Police, obviously, in 2015, Mike Barnes and the late Ron Hogg rolled out our deprioritization. That then became the checkpoint scheme, which has now been picked up by, I believe, 5 or 6 different constabularies of the 43, and is slowly gaining traction. But unfortunately, along with the same as decriminalization, it does nothing to control supply. It does nothing to help regulate and remove adulterated products. So we're seeing statistics thrown around that 99,000, some hundreds, and it was just slightly over 100,000 people were admitted for skunk psychosis to hospital last year. Which
I saw that transformed totally. Martin and Steve from Transform totally picked that study.
It's all bullshit. But again, it's the conflation. So we have a block that is pumping this propaganda out, and there is no cohesive narrative and no bipartisan political support for the idea that we should legalize drugs, not to create corporate interest, but because it's the right fucking thing to do.
You see, there's crossovers. So there's the conservative drug policy action group or whatever I can't remember.
There is Labour drug policy reform, Conservative drug policy reform group, and they are basically the same thing. They are not. They've bought politicians.
Well, they're not.
They are made up of corporations. They are being bought by hedge.
Exactly. They're not. No one. The discussion about the corporate. I mean, I'm of the opinion that the corporation can do what it likes. I don't really care. I'm not going to fight the corporate cannabis. As long as everyday people can grow their own.
As long as there's community cannabis. As long as there is an acceptance.
But they know that that's not going to work for them, is it? Because how are they going to profit?
But they're stupid. They will always be profiting this. Look, I mean, if we break down the pie, if we break down the population pie now, anyone under 35, they're going to fucking grow it and smoke it at this point because they haven't been ingrained and indoctrinated into it. Anyone above that kind of thing grew up in Dare. They grew up in other things. So they'd be like, the pharmacy, I trust the doctor, rather than those dodgy hoodied kids that are going to sell us this. What's gelato? Do you know what I mean? So and then the older generation above that, there's a certain break. Ironically, boomers are the largest consumers of legit recreational cannabis in the world. They are killing it because they remember before it was all this stupid super skunk and all the propaganda and hype. They're getting it, enjoying it, it's helping them, and they're reducing their pharmacological intake. So this is why you're seeing now the world is abandoning the opioid paradigm. Trillions have been made from opioids and from what's been developed. The Sackler family alone made $15 billion from this. You know what I mean? We're now moving away in the next coming books that are published on all of this. We're moving away from opioids and we're going to go cannabis-based therapies. We're even looking at LSD as a next level pain treatment. We're all kinds of alternatives. So all they're going to do is switch the paradigm, medicinalize that, weaponize it, industrialize it, and then still demonize us for small cultural consumption. And we're still going to have an adulterated, illicit market, which, there'll still be a lot of good pockets of dealers that are legit and test their products. Like you and I know that there's a lot of good people that deal drugs that are involved in the community that are demonized because of the laws. But we should be given equal opportunity to welcome into the light. There shouldn't be a man who makes $1 billion from selling cannabis on the cover of Forbes when you flick through the Daily Mail and every other page is a cannabis raid here and a fucking trafficked child here and an 80-year-old in prison here. It's all just, it's ridiculous, man.
I know. Yeah, it's very frustrating. It's mad. I mean, that's what's driven me to still be involved in sort of being involved in policy.
So I've just thought there, sort of from my own point of view. Actually, I'm without a political party currently. the Labour Party killed the hope that I had. Jeremy Corbyn was frankly one of the only politicians that I have any support for. He had his fucking flaws.
Yeah.
But
I like John McDonnell. I think John McDonnell would have been great for this country.
There's been a few good people in Labour over the years. Tony Blair was a fucking red Tory, was Thatcher's best project, as she said before he died, or greatest achievement, whatever it was before she died. So then we had fucking Jeremy Corbyn, who looked so juxtaposed to that. It's going to look fucking wrong. The way the media savaged and destroyed this.
I mean,
they've put Keir Starmer in. So I've literally gone, I have no respect or association to this. So what I'm thinking is it as simple as you've alluded to in this? Can I join the Green Party and join the Green Party policy group?
Yes.
And I can be a lot more radical. I ain't got a teaching job to worry about. I've got no respectability, and I am more than happy to sit and email.
It's all well and good. It's all
every single.
You see, so you say that, and actually, so we were drug policy working group. We got the policy voted through at conference. So we want to be like a drug policy action group now. So what action can we do? So when we were thinking about what Sean could say, you can't really come out and go, we're going to advocate cannabis social clubs, because what does that actually mean? That's just like, it's there in our policy. If you want to read our policy, it says we advocate. But as a soundbite, that would have been ripped apart, really. People, cannabis is illegal. You can't, so...
Without a framework to it, you can't...
What we want to do is we want to target councillors, like, across the country. There's a lot of green councillors. Like we're in the process of sort of putting together sort of like literature that councillors can have, like a kind of uniform thing about drug policy. This is our policy. Like, try and educate the Green Party. I mean, even myself, I'm here in Exeter, and they're nice people, the Exeter Green Party people, and they've said, come and do a talk if you want to. They're not opposing me, but they're also not. They're wary. They're still a bit wary. So, you'd be welcome. You'd be welcome to join, and you'd be invited to the discussion. Yeah, of course.
Because I'm just thinking. Obviously, I've got a lot of sort of experience.
I mean, if you don't like it, you can just leave.
I'm more than happy. I'm well versed in leaving political parties at this point. So it's basically all I'm sort of in a cheeky way is alluding to is that people who have more of an alternative voice sort of get involved in the conversation, because I think, yes, the Green Party's policy is progressive, but, and I mean this with respect to all involved, including yourself, it was progressive 10 years ago.
Right, yeah.
Whereas now we're at a point of corporate cannabis is an inevitability. With the structure of Brexit and everything else and the way that tax havens are going to work, they are going to asset strip billions from the most impoverished neighborhoods, because they're not going to risk continued cultivation. They're going to pay the inflated rate of their dispensary price cannabis, and all that money is going to be siphoned off from the communities. It's going to impoverish areas and destroy it. We have to accept that it's inevitability of corporate cannabis. So we have to look at the consequences and legislate to the outcomes of that. Us going now and looking back and trying to build people to it in a lot of ways. I'm radical and I'm still quite young, but I have done every drug thus far. I think I've put my hands on. I've had a lot of dependent issues myself. I've had a lot of psychiatric issues, and I've done a lot of independent research and learned a lot myself. And I've got a lot of lived experience. And I just want, the reason I do this, the reason I write, the reason I run the website and everything else is to try to be involved in that conversation, to say to people, look, drugs are not, you take one, you're going to be selling your body on the street, you're going to be homeless and destitute. They're the consequences of prohibition, not substance use.
No, of course not.
These are the narratives that need to be had in the mainstream. And it starts with having cohesive communications between organizations like LEAP and people like yourself of the Green Party, so that there's an advocacy for the authoritative system. So if an old biddy picking it up who's just read for 10 years in the Express that cannabis kills kittens, and all of a sudden then, the police said that it doesn't, and then these doctors say it doesn't, these politicians say it doesn't.
Yeah, well, that's how
maybe
you're right. That's what's happened. That's what they're trying to do. And this is, like I always say, it's never been about. It's about them trying to figure out how they can, create a system where they maximize their profits, but people aren't growing it and giving it away.
But they're already maximizing the profits now. As a grower, you pay tax on your electric, on your water, on your seeds, on your feed, on your tent, on your lights, on your bulbs. You pay more tax than Amazon, and you're a criminal. Get the fuck out of here. You pay tax. You know what I mean?
Totally,
it is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Then you're stimulating the economy. There's a calculation done in Colorado that suggested for every $1 spent on cannabis, somewhere in the region of $2.80 to $3 was generated by people spending at restaurants, people buying skins and paraphernalia, people then having money because they generated from cultivation to actually then generate wealth instead of having to earn it back through hours of their time. Meant
so much money.
There was social and class fucking mobility. There was an opportunity for people to pay off debts, which meant, look at this country, council tax is the leading form of debt. You want to wonder why we've got no money for social programs. On one side, we allow the corporations to take over everything and pay zero tax. Then we asset strip the people by making sure that the only services they can buy are from said people. Who's propping up the tax? So we don't have money to pay our council tax. There is no other taxes being paid. That's why they've hiked VAT. We are the ones getting screwed, while the individuals that own the system are gaming it. If we allow them to do that with cannabis, they will do it with MDMA. They will do it with psychedelics of all forms. And
I know.
We have to get kind of radical at this point, otherwise.
Totally.
Otherwise, we're going to steamroll it, and then we're going to have to be fighting, going, because I don't, as you said before, I don't want to be an oppositionalist. I don't want to stand with a fucking sign outside Parliament saying, "Don't legalize cannabis."
No.
I want to fight for the right model. I don't want to fight for Canada or Israel or America or any of these maladaptive things that have come thus far. A people-based initiative for the people that have protected this planet for generations, the people who still today risk 14 years incarceration for cultivating it, 5 years for fucking possessing it, or 7 or whatever the current law is, for then giving it to other people and helping other people be self-sufficient, removing them from criminality. We are doing more growing our own cannabis than fucking the police are by targeting us for growing it.
You've just reminded me.
Criminality.
You've just reminded me of a point, and I'm gonna fucking burst my way in here and brute force it.
Sorry, I have been a bit mono.
No, it's good. It's good energy. And just quickly, I'll just say, so yeah, I mean, I'm getting weary. Sometimes I get weary. I think a lot of us in the group are a bit weary. I know they're trying to. There's a couple of the members from Hackney. They want to do something there, but yeah, any new energy that wants to come and get involved, that'd be welcomed. Believe me.
Hell yeah.
So anyone else out there listening, join the Green Party, and it is essentially quite open. You can affect it. Although there is a hierarchy, of course there is, and when it comes to the drug policy, we're quite open. People can join the WhatsApp group, join the party, join the WhatsApp group, and get involved. It's quite easy. Anyway, sorry.
Maka, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Let's see if I can actually remember it now, because
sorry.
No, see, just in case. What I want to see is, just to combine what you've both just said. Sorry, I've just lost my slipper. Right, definitely not Biden for time or nothing. So the people that have been incarcerated historically for, let's just say, cannabis use, right? They're in a perfect position, especially for cultivation, not necessarily for exploitative gang culture. I'm just talking about people that are incarcerated for cultivation and growing, right? Yeah. They're in a perfect position to be given an incentive, a financial incentive, to go and start up something in places that are in need of financial reprieve, and to have a model, a smaller nationalized, a whole nationalized model, but within that is something that feeds back into the community. So there is a certain amount of profitability that maintains overheads and whatnot, but it's all of the positives from every aspect of the plant is being pushed then back into a community, a small community, right? Yeah. And anything excess within that community goes to your neighboring community. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's your sort of almost socialist model in that regard. But specifically, the reason why I'd like, first and foremost, is a bit of cannabis reparations for people to have that opportunity to be not necessarily in control of that model, but to be in a driving seat, using their experience to cultivate on a very, very fucking large scale for the local community. And it's not just for consumption. Everyone's thinking like, oh, I'm going to roll up 17 spliffs and have them all, out the side of my fucking mouth. No, I'm talking about proper graphene fucking batteries. I'm talking about, hooking that shit up to the solar, a combination with solar, with hydro fucking, do you know what I mean? All of that can be facilitated, and I've banged on about this, but I'm going to fucking say it again, on a local level that can be fed into a national sustainable model.
Totally.
And where are you then with fucking healthy communities, with increased amounts of fucking resources available for nutrition and fucking education? And I'm on a roll here. Go ahead, jump in here.
No, I mean, that was what that was my master's. That's what I'm saying. So this is a relationship with this plant from a biochemical level, a micro level, right through to agroecological, So, I mean, I'd say that maybe we don't want the country covered in hemp, because that would be another monocrop. Maybe we use it to clean up soils here and there so we can then grow food. I mean, I'm the same as you. My vision for this plant is like unbounded. It's community hemp grows, so we're cleaning the soil, making the soils nice for food. We're also each community is growing its certain amount of fiber to go to the carbon to make hempcrete, to build social housing. This plant can solve so many of the environmental and social crises that we face. Mm-hmm. I'm the same. I'm banging on about it. Like Jacques Herrera was banging on about it way back, and I've tried to be sciencey about it. So take what Jacques Herrera was saying and try and put social science words, and this is our companion. This is like the same as dogs. Yeah. The way human relationship with dogs, it's that big. Our relationship with cannabis, it's that big, and it has been, I don't know if you've read the book, the Ethnobotany and Cannabis, who's Merlin, and they're academic books, so it talks about co-evolution from a very sciencey.
I haven't.
But so that was one of the books that I referred to in my masters. I mean, my masters had, the references are like 10, 15 pages of references, but so I totally agree. We could this plant could solve so many, well, at least ameliorate the problems. It's maybe on its own it's not going to solve everything.
So I'm just curious here then, what sort of directions are going on? Like there should be a cross across department conversation, say, between what's the Green Party's Brexit policy and drug policy, because look, farmers are fucked. Without these European subsidies, they're fucked. There are vast amounts without European labour, we're in trouble. Without a government plan. So if you then go, all right.
So why isn't the government facilitating hemp farmers? I mean, I don't know if you know, it's like Hempham and Nathaniel Loxley at Vitality Hemp, and there's a few hemp farmers in this country now, but it's hard work for them. If they've got to burn their CBD crop, how are they going to make money anyway?
Well, they're not allowed to extract flowers. So the licensing restrictions, for anyone who doesn't know, in this country, there's a few licenses. One is a low THC cannabis license, aka a hemp license. One is a high THC cannabis cultivation license, but that requires a dangerous drugs license from the Home Office as well.
But even then, see, they created, I think it was last year or the year before, they suddenly changed the law and made CBD a controlled substance. So Hempham can have I think they've got 250 acres, but they can't turn their flowers into CBD.
No, it's a limitation of the license, so that you're only allowed to grow for the fibrous materials.
So coming back to what you're saying, reaching out to the agricultural group of the Green Party, I've done it once. I didn't get a good response. I didn't get, I'm the same as you. I'm like, why aren't we talking to the agriculture department? Why aren't we talking to food? And we do reach out, but there's only so much you can do.
Plus, it's a limitation with the specification of knowledge. They know I'm agriculture and that's a drug. They can't see beyond the drug.
And if I don't get, I've only got so much energy, so many hours in the day, that sure, it's something I should follow up. I should be sort of saying, I should be pestering the agricultural part of the Green Party. I know there is an agricultural group, but yeah, I haven't. But yeah, so that's one example. So also looking at technology. I'm sure there's a technology group in the Green Party. Why aren't we talking about graphene? Why is no one talking about graphene?
Bioplastics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bioplastics. Paper, bog roll. Why aren't we fucking making up bog roll out of hemp? They're the basic level.
Yeah, we could literally capture the carbon around us and wipe our ass with it. We can build our homes with it, as you are now. I think you're wearing a THTC hemp, We can.
I feel fucking left out now.
We can wear it. It's all right. This is one of the I'm gonna cotton ones. So this is shout out freedom.
Yeah, this is a cotton one too.
But even that, the cotton that they produce is still it's organic. They've reduced the pesticide.
Gav from THTC, he'd be the first one to say that if there was a hemp industry in Britain, he'd source it from Britain.
I would do, yeah.
Yeah, I've asked him, I've talked to him about that, and he's like, yeah, of course I would.
Yeah, we had him on a podcast episode, shout out to a couple of episodes ago, I think episode 12 maybe, with him and Ash, really fucking good. But again, so then why is there, I asked this in a slightly rhetorical sense, but I also want a response. Why is there no cannabis institution? Why in this country do we have a hemp industry and a recreational movement and a fucking CBD industry and a small plastics industry and a tiny graphene industry that's not even looking at cannabis? Why do we have all this compartmentalization rather than one government-funded department?
Ministry of Cannabis.
Exactly.
Oh, record label name there, right? Fuck it.
Why is there not a Ministry of Cannabis? Because if you think about it, if we had that and it was allowed with unbiased, I mean, obviously, kind of just answer my own question. If we look at David Nutt's trajectory out of the independent fucking drug group, you know what I mean, for then advising against government policy, they've very much made up their mind about the tiny aspect of this that is a drug.
Yeah.
They're so scared of their own narrative, of their skunk psychosis and the myths that they've created to perpetuate the little lie that they've got comfortable with. You know what I mean?
I know, it's horrendous. It's mad, isn't it? I mean, every day. I mean, like I say, I get weary now. Not that I'm stopping. I'm still here, and I'm still like want change. But every day it's like, what the hell? This plant's just like, and that's not just a gut. That's like, as you probably know people in your life, and they're sound, but still cannabis is still really. What, it can do all that? Yeah. It can.
Yeah.
It can do all this. It's like it's a magic greenery, isn't it?
But it's almost like we need to combine the words. People can only hear something when they hear it. They can only see it when they see it.
And also the device.
Who said it? Fucking like if cannabis was called, it was Mike Barnes, wasn't it? He was like, if cannabis was called something else, if it had a different name, it'd be legalized.
Yeah, if they found it now, exactly that. It's the stigma and the weight of it. But my point is that, for over a couple of centuries now, there have been people, more than that actually, if you think about it, there are people who've been advocating and trying to protect this. Modern prohibition around cannabis, or prohibition around cannabis, started in like the 1830s, 1840s. And since then, there have been champions in each culture that have gone, you're wrong. It can do this, it can do that. They protect that flame of knowledge and pass it through. So we sit here today with this technology and with our knowledge because of the sacrifices of those before us. So if there's nothing more than we carry this flame to the next to light the way, I'm happy with that, man.
Yeah, me too.
I don't need to eat the fruits of the trees I plant today because I'd rather die with the ethics and the knowledge of knowing that I fucking tried. I've spent my days on the internet. I've spent my days writing and researching it. Going, I've seen a thing. Can you see the thing? And if they can't, I can't really blame the fuckers for it. No. But I can keep goddamn going because the hell else are we going to do?
Exactly.
So I can sympathize entirely with your fatigue. People who know me and have watched my shit over the years see me just disappear for times. They watch me get lethargic and break down with this because it's a hard fucking fight.
It's a fucking marathon, mate.
But protecting the truth always will be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a noble cause in that sense. I'm not trying to cash in. I'm not trying to... I've got enough connections with fucking companies around the world and people that like me, that want me to become a cash cow. That if I brandize and I step into that... And that's not who I am. I want us to have the gate first. We start the companies. Then they can come to us. They may have business experience and distribution and whatever else. We're the fucking culture. We're the community. We're the people sacrificed for this plant. And we deserve, frankly, the biggest goddamn piece.
Yeah, equity. Equity.
Exactly. Equity through it. And I believe the only way to do that is a community model. Or rather, the community model has to come with the corporate model, which is an inevitable tidal wave. And we'll ride on that. And as long as when their wave has crashed and they've made their money and fucked off, we're the ones left with a framework so that no man goes to prison, no child loses a parent. I mean, nobody loses an opportunity in life for a fucking plant or for a drug that they've choose to consume.
Totally agree.
Nice. So it's worth fighting for. Man. It's worth fighting for.
Yeah, I think so too. And I haven't done, you know, if ever I was questioned, I'd just be like, well, I haven't done anything wrong. You know, I haven't done anything wrong. You know, it's like,
I have broken a law, but as many men have said before, it is a moral obligation of the righteous to break unjust laws.
Boom.
Yellow card.
It's a piece of paper. Just for to fucking ruin that then yeah. No, but it's like, I've done anything wrong just because a fucking piece of paper that was written ages ago has some fucking wording on it that differs from what I've done. Or sorry, you get my point. Piece of paper, totally. That's all it fucking is. And it's probably not even made out of hemp.
With that brings me actually to a wonderful point, and probably one of my final questions, which is the Misuse of Drugs Act turned 50 this year.
Yeah.
The evidence that, or rather the impetus that was put on Britain to create this act was done by the signing of the 1961 UN Single Convention on Drugs.
Yeah.
We have subsequently found out that convention was created based on a report produced by the World Health Organization in 1955, which proclaimed the harms of cannabis. It is one of the most racist, non-scientific, nonsensical bullshit documents you will read on the subject. That became the basis for this, which then meant that in policymakers' eyes and authorities' eyes, cannabis and drugs are bad because they're illegal. And that has just metastasized and turned into a tumor, a cancerous tumor within society, to now there are people, huge swaths of culture. Drugs are bad. Why? Because they're illegal. Why are they illegal? Because they're bad.
Yeah.
And they can't see beyond that. So what I would ask is there any political sort of appetite within the Green Party or anywhere on the spectrum, could you think, for a review of the Misuse of Drugs Act? If we did anything else after 50, the science that we have since those documents around the endocannabinoid system, THC, the various molecules, terpenes, flavonoids, how it affects individuals, and all of the vast amounts of data that we've got since.
You see, I think when it comes to the Misuse of Drugs Act, it's just not fit for purpose, full stop, is it? I mean, you can tinker with it, I suppose. You could drop cannabis down to, but I mean, when we were sort of discussing we were discussing this, we came up with things like traffic light systems, and we came up with all kinds of different ways that you could regulate drugs. And really, you've got to sort of take each one on their own, really. You've got to kind of treat each one, although there's crossovers. So like special pharmacies for opioids or cocaine, or, you know, it's in our policy. It's still not specific, but I think when it comes to the Misuse of Drugs Act, it's not fit for purpose. It needs to just be, I don't know what.
It's still based on an idea of a world where the UN pledged to make the world drug free.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is based in an ideology where drugs are wrong and anyone that takes them loses their humanity. It is then we are righteous to lock them in a cage, deny them their humanity, watch them go through withdrawal, and force them and indoctrinate them into a paradigm that they don't believe, and not address their trauma, not address their reasons for having their dependencies.
No, totally.
And I think so.
It's just not fit for purpose.
Yeah, so a review would do that. If we then got an independent anybody with half a fucking brain that then looks at this thing and goes, this is why we take kids from parents. This is why we destroy whole communities.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, review. I think the original drug policy. Yeah, you have a royal commission into it. I don't really know the ins and outs of that, to be honest. I'm probably not the best person to ask.
It's something I'm definitely going to be asking a lot of people from fucking now. So if anybody listening has any idea how we go about this, obviously I'm not saying I carry that much clout or influence, but I've got a passion, and I can send the odd email and write the odd thing. So if there's some way in which we could trigger some individuals that would be willing to push this, the way into it. If we can get enough people, somebody to look at it within government and kind of go, oh fuck.
I think they've just tired. There's the APPG, isn't there? The All Parliamentary Group that's got people from, you know, all walks of life. Because you're right, this isn't a party. This is you know, all political spectrums. Whilst we might disagree on reasons, and I think liberty is probably one thing that we all agree on. So even the you know, neoliberalists and the Tories, we all agree that it's a liberty issue. You know, what I put in my body is really up to me. Once I'm informed, I'm an adult. It's not really anyone's business as long as it's consensual and I'm not hurting anyone. And, you know, and I think that's quite a common ground.
We have to arrive at a point where we have with alcohol.
Yeah.
So you think of how taxi drivers or people will deal with drunks. You look at the way police deal with drunks on a Friday and Saturday night in a town centre compared to the way they would deal people acting that way on other substances.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a point we have to recognize that, look, yes, this thing exists. The best we can do, regulate the market so it is as safe as possible and as standardized as possible so people know what they're getting. We then create safe consumption spaces in clubs and pubs.
Make testing accessible for
Yeah, until you're going to actually nationalize this stuff and then sell them and allow there to be brands of products, which is going to, again, be an inevitability because with the increase of liberty comes the increase of desire to want to explore your consciousness. I am loving Dr. Carl Hart at the minute.
Yeah,
I'm in his philosophy. Hart. He has come out and he's got this wonderful, the philosophy is just drugs exist, people want to take them, fuck you. Society, if they owe anything to people, is if I then take drugs and I have a problem, then look, if I have a nut allergy, my doctor will then give me an EpiPen. I'll then be advised. So the whole of the world will then write on every fucking food product if it's got a nut in.
Yeah, exactly.
We had that same approach with drugs and go, some people, when they take cocaine, it reacts badly with them because they have a natural too much dopamine or whatever else.
It's harm reduction, education. If you could say to kids that THC is very psychoactive, it will do stuff to your brain, you know. Maybe you know you start off with a strain that's got a bit of you know a good significant amount of CBD in it, and we
can circumnavigate that even all. That's even quite old world thinking, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a company in Israel that can map your fucking DNA and then select you the best profile of things to you, right? Yeah. Can you imagine if we get that technology into the hands of the education institutions, right? Yeah. And we develop processes so that you could go to a doctor as a teenager and go, I'm thinking of experimenting with drugs. They take a fucking blood sample and go, right, according to this and your lifestyle factors and the fact that you were abused or you've had enough difficult upbringing or any of the precipitous factors that Guillermo Marte and those addiction independent specialists speak of, they can then map your likelihood of having problematic drug use, give you best harm reduction advice, what to avoid, and say, actually, if you want to take cocaine, rather take a low stimulant like a base amphetamine, take a this, take a that. Actual useful fucking information will save lives, allow people to experience this and then not stigmatize others that choose and just go, well, this, I smoked weed once and it made me funny, so no one should be allowed it. Or I saw my best friend's brother's sister's girlfriend's nephew tripped once and this happened, so no one should be allowed acid.
Exactly. Well, I'm still waiting to go mad from my use, and it has, well...
I used to say that.
A different opinion on that. I have.
I used to say that. I was like, actually, I used to say that about myself, and then I used
really use that term. I know, but
I used to say like, well, do you know what I mean? If it ruins you, I must be fucked completely. But then I saw Darren Blackwell's use on your fucking your precursor to this podcast, and I was like, fuck me, if that isn't the poster child for non psychosis causality, I don't know who the fuck is. Fuck me. I was like, the level, I thought I used to have a high consumption rate. Fucking hell.
Well, to be fair, all you have to do is you can point to a wonderful thing and I get a shout out to a fucking documentary. As soon as I want to say it, it's gone and left my brain. It's wicked documentary that came out the other year, and there's a point in it. The late Dr. Lester Grinspoon speaks of schizophrenia, and he says, look, the uptake of the world for schizophrenia, the prevalence of it is about 1%. Then when there's been an explosion of marijuana use, as he termed it, obviously being American, there was no increase in an uptick. So there is no causality. There is, however, people who will present with psychosis or schizoid type disorders will then present with this. So they will look at this evidence to see if it's causation or not. And so they'll then attribute causality, whereas actually the vast majority of people that then present smoke tobacco with their cannabis, which has a causal relationship with psychosis. Yet this is so vastly available, people don't even think about it. You know what I mean? So there are other nuanced things that are happening here that we're not talking about. All drugs can precipitate a psychosis type event. So can mass trauma, a car accident, breakup. You know, any of these bad drunk...
Correlation. It's not causation. There's no evidence.
Yeah, but no, what I mean is that they can then precipitate this thing happening, but that's not necessarily what caused it. That maybe is where the straw that broke the camel's back. But to say that caused the entirety of it is the skirt over everything else. So I think that ultimately one of the last points I think I'll make with this is that as we've kind of alluded to throughout this, that unless we have a sensible, rational, unbiased and unemotional conversation about drugs, we're going to end up with an alcohol 2.0. We're going to end up with problematic use of cannabis and whatever other substance they corporatize and mass market and drive down our throats, while they themselves hide the studies of the harms that's caused by their models rather than the substance itself, which is what we saw with tobacco. Tobacco, when it was used in other cultures and the way it was used, was relatively harmless, didn't have the links to lung cancer and all of the other things. In its modern form, and it's mass produced, has serious ramifications for health. So like I said, we need to be aware that that's a reality and build policy that's relevant to that. So I do look forward to signing up to the Green Party and harassing you and daily being like, hey guys, consider this. You consider this. Are you seeing this? You heard about this? So yeah, let's see. I'm not advocating to my listeners here to join the Green Party per se. I do agree with a lot of policies. I am myself going to obviously look into this and I'll report back.
I personally am a glorified fence sitter when it comes to political parties. What I do is I wait until I have to vote and then I make a decision based on the information.
That's good you vote. It's good that you vote.
No, I do. I'm partyless, but I'm a nomad. Do you know what I mean?
I say to people,
impress me, bitches. Do you know what I mean that amicably before anybody jumps on my throat about that.
I say to people who don't vote, at least go in there and write, I hate all of you. At least do something.
Express yourself.
Yeah.
Engage. I mean, again, I think it's a certain thing that you respect and honor the past. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people died for you to kind of just go, and if you can't be asked, just, you know what I mean? It's just, But anyway, I divulge. Jules, it has been a fucking pleasure, honestly.
Brilliant.
We will drop links to your music to people that want to get involved with the Green Party and to anything else that we've discussed that hopefully Mac has made notes of, because I didn't. But we'll have you on again in the future, hopefully when I have got my way into something. I'd be like, look, the Green Party's going to announce something cool. It's not going to be quite. It's not going to be quite. We're going to sell LSD and fucking everyone gets a free unicorn and whatever else. But we'll get there eventually. So yeah, honestly, we'll have you on again in the future, brother. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So
thank you for having me.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Thanks for putting up with us.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, as always, to our listeners and viewers. You can, if you enjoyed this video, check us out on patreon.com/The Simpa Life and support us for less than a cup of coffee a week and help me keep the lights on and keep well fed and actually able to continue with this project. I am very much enjoying it and do not want to slow. In fact, I want to increase. So anything you can do to help support that would be greatly appreciated as we potentially go into a summer of events. We might get events.
He's deluded. He's fucking deluded.
Shut up. Don't listen to him. Anyway, people, this has been beautiful. You've been wonderful. Thank you very much. Peace and love.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.